Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Marty Ross, and here is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. This is a webinar where we talk about Lyme disease, and these days we're talking about coronavirus as well, too. So I'll be glad to take your questions on both of those tonight based on my reading and what I've been studying about it as well, too. For those of you that are new here, the way you participate is you create the webinars and you create them with your questions. And there's a chat box over here on the right-hand side of the screen down at the bottom that you can use to write your question to me. The only thing I ask is try to be brief with your questions. If you start making them very long, I can't post them. They will freeze my computer, literally freeze up my computer. And I've had to actually end webinars before when I tried to post some of the real long questions, all right? The other thing is, try not to create paragraphs with your questions by using the enter key, because every time you hit the enter key, it sends another question to me. So each time you hit the enter key, it sends the question to me, okay? And it gets hard for me to piece together multiple parts of a question from my side here. Tonight I am creating a recording as I usually do, and if everything goes well, I'll be able to get that recording to you tomorrow morning. I do wind up having to do some brief edits on it, and so by the time I do that and get it out to you in the morning, it's usually around 9 to 9:30 a.m. my time here in Seattle, all right? And so you'll get a notification from me in your email saying that recording is ready, and it will show you with a link of where you can go. Also in that email, you'll be able to sign up for the next week's webinar and the one after that. So we have 3 more scheduled, including the one tonight, okay? And then 2 more after that during the month of April. Let's see, what else do I need to say? Oh, if you happen to miss the email, there's different places you can find it. You can find it at my Lyme disease information site, which is Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD at treatlyme.net. You can find it at my supplements store, which is Marty Ross MD supplements at treatlyme.com. You can find it on the homepage there. And you can also find it on the homepage of my clinic website, which is Marty Ross MD Healing Arts. And that URL is martyrossmd.com. Okay, so there's multiple places you can find it. I also put it up on my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/treatlyme. I also put it there. So if you don't get the email, there's multiple places that you can find it, okay? All right. So it's been an interesting week since we last talked, and suddenly Seattle, although still being a hot coronavirus place, is no longer on the hot seat. It has shifted, but the good news is that the social distancing that we did aggressively out here beginning about 3 weeks ago and really ramped up about a week and a half ago has been starting to show benefit out here. And I say that as a word of encouragement to those of you that are starting to get this thing for the first time or where it's really taken off in New York, is if you can stay inside, don't go out as much as you can, try to limit your contacts, and when you are around people, be at least 6 feet away. Those kind of practices are actually starting to slow the spread of the virus out here, and I think it can do so in other areas of the country as well, too. And I probably will mention more about that later, too. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and get started here. I'll take the first question. I will post questions on the screen, but I am going to read them. So if you're participating in the live version of the webinar tonight, you get to see the question. But if you're listening to recorded version, you get to hear me read it because the posted questions never show up in the recorded version, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First question is from Deborah. Hi, Dr. Ross. Are there any positive, negative, or possible negative side effects when taking transfer factor multi-immune, like die-off symptoms? What about reishi or mushroom complex? Are they good for increasing immunity during a COVID outbreak? I have low natural killer cells, specifically the CD57 kind of natural killer cell, which is at 30, and a white blood cell count that is slightly low at 3. And I have clinical Lyme and Bart. Thanks so much. Stay safe. Okay, so everyone, I have written an article about what to do to boost your immune system as part of COVID-19, okay? And tomorrow I'm going to be updating that article to bring it up to speed a little bit more about additional things you can do to possibly treat the COVID-19 using either herbs or prescriptions. But a key part of that is still going to be my immune system boosting recommendations. So I'm going to go over those now with you, okay? And to specifically answer your question. So when we talk about the immune system and coronavirus, I want to make a distinction between two parts of the immune system. There's one which is called the innate immune system, and another part of our immune system is the adaptive immune system. All right, the adaptive immune system is the part of the immune system that at some time in your life has already had to deal with the infection or a similar type of infection. So for instance, when you get the flu each year, it's the adaptive immune system, which is made up of your T white blood cells and your immunoglobulins and that part of the immune system, and your B cells or your B white blood cells, all right? And so it's seen the infection before, right? The innate immune system is the part of the immune system that has to fight germs that it has never seen before, all right? So that's what we need to engage. If we're going to do something to boost our ability to deal with coronavirus, we need to be talking about the innate immune system because none of us has ever seen it before. That's why it's called the novel coronavirus. It's a new infection, okay? All right, now your innate immune system is made up of your skin, all right, made up of your mucous membranes, and it's made up of a variety of cells. One of those cells are natural killer cells. Another group is called macrophages. Mast cells are part of it. Something called phagocytes are part of it as well too, and another cell called a dendritic cell, okay? So we wanted to work with things that specifically will boost those, all right? Now, one comment. You mentioned NK cells here, and you mentioned that your CD57 is low. So a CD57 is one kind of natural killer cell, and it is often low in people with chronic Lyme. That does not mean all of your natural killer cells are low, okay? In fact, if you were to study most patients with low CD57 counts, they actually still have normal natural killer cells. The only way you would really know if you have low natural killer cells is your doctor, in addition to checking your CD57 fraction, would actually have to measure your natural killer cell totals to see is your natural killer cell levels low, okay? All right, so what do you do to boost your innate immune system? Well, number one, vitamin A has been shown to actually increase the balance of, or actually been shown to increase your mucous membrane's ability to keep germs out, okay? So I usually like recommending vitamin A, 5,000 international units a day. Keep in mind, if you get above 10,000, that's where you start getting into vitamin A toxicity issues, okay? Number two, what has been shown useful at preventing and decreasing effects of all kinds of respiratory viruses is vitamin D. And I usually like to have people get their vitamin D levels so that they're somewhere between 50 and 80. One way to do that is to be on 5,000 international units a day. There's been good studies from the flu that shows when people have adequate vitamin D levels that they have 50% less symptoms than people that don't, okay? Now, will that correspond to what happens in coronavirus? I don't know. We've never studied it with vitamin D, but there's a good chance it will, okay? One substance that can help your natural killer cell function is to take a product called transfer factor multi-immune, which is manufactured by Research Nutritionals, which is in great undersupply, okay? The Research Nutritionals, unfortunately, has had a run on that product. And although I periodically get it in, they're only allowing me to get about 48 bottles every week. And so if you go to my website, you'll find right now I have it. But I don't know how much longer I'll have it. I have another supply coming in on Friday, so we'll see, okay? But what their product has been shown to do is to increase your natural killer cell function by 600%, okay? That doesn't mean it actually necessarily increases the amount of natural killer cells, but it helps them work better by about 600%, okay? So natural killer cells are part of your innate immune system, all right? The other thing that could be useful is to be on mushrooms. And in particular, I like reishi mushrooms. And the reason I like mushrooms is that they contain a sugar called beta-glucans. And beta-glucans are shown to increase the function of your natural killer cells, of your macrophages, your dendritic cells, and your phagocytes, okay? It increases the function of all of those, all right? A good dose of the reishi gano is 400 milligrams 3 times a day. Okay, now again, even though it increases your innate function, I have no proof it's going to work in coronavirus, but there's a chance it can. Okay, all right. The other thing you want to do that specifically helps your dendritic cells work better is to raise glutathione in those cells. And there's two ways to do that. You can use either a glutathione. You can take like a Trifortify orange or a Trifortify watermelon, which is liposomal glutathione by Research Nutritionals. And if you were to do that, 1 teaspoon a day could be helpful. Or you can raise glutathione by being on N-acetylcysteine, which is a product that helps increase your cell's production of glutathione. Okay, so all of those things that I just said are things you can do to boost your immune system, the innate immune system specifically. Okay, all right. And that's just to turn on your immune system. Now, later on tonight in the webinar, I'm sure that I'm going to have questions about what you can do to actually fight the infection if you have it. And I've got some additional ideas about that from an herbal medicine and even a prescription standpoint, but I'll wait until we get that question later tonight. All right. Now, let me just show you my article here. And actually, before I do it, I actually forgot to pull it up. Hold on just a minute. I got to open up another window here and find my Lyme disease information site. Just a minute. And I'm going to show this to you here in just a second. All right, so let me do a quick screen share here. All right, this is my Lyme disease information site. And in terms of finding my COVID-19 coronavirus article, just go up here to the search. Actually, you can find it here. This is where I put my most recent ones. Or you could just type in coronavirus up here in the search bar, okay? But let's go down here. All right, so this is my article called Coronavirus COVID-19 and Lyme, okay? I want to let you know I am going to be updating this tomorrow, and you will see some additions to this article about things you can do to treat this virus and to potentially decrease the chances of its infectivity if you should get it. I also need to update this about risk that people have and other measures you can prevent it, okay? But the part I am not going to update is this part about supporting your innate immune system. And in here, I talk about vitamin A, vitamin D, beta glucans, the transfer factor multi-immune. Oh, probiotics also can be helpful for your innate immune system too. But I talked here about what you can do, the products you can use to boost your innate immune system, okay? All right. All right, so again, that section about how you boost your innate immune system will probably not change at all in my revised article, but that article I wrote about 2 weeks ago, and there's a lot more we've learned in the world since I wrote that, and I need to update that article. And so it will include information about how do you treat and decrease the infection if you should get it or think you have it, okay? I'll be adding those things. We'll probably talk about them later tonight as well, too. All right? I hope that answers your question. Oh, one other thing I want to say about the immune system. So people in Lyme have this opinion that that people with Lyme, there is an opinion that people have immune suppression with Lyme. And there's a concern that people have with Lyme that may make them into one of the high-risk groups, okay? So we know that people that tend to do worse with COVID-19 are people that have underlying heart disease, have underlying lung disease, have diabetes, have some immune suppressive illness, like various rheumatoid arthritis and things like that, okay? And so therefore, people with Lyme who basically have concerns about immune suppression because they have Lyme living in them, and obviously their immune system hasn't done a good job getting rid of Lyme. So there's an opinion that people have that they have an immune suppression that may make them at higher risk for COVID-19 and coronavirus. And what I would say to you is that's probably not true. Although the immune system in Lyme has been manipulated in a way that allows Lyme to survive, that doesn't necessarily mean that people that means you have a broad immune suppression that's going to make it difficult for you to deal with coronavirus, okay? And in fact, I was listening to a recent webinar that had people on it like Dr. Richard Horowitz, Dr. Steve Harris in California, Dr. Schweig, and others, and they were basically saying the same thing. So it was nice to hear other people confirm my opinion as well, too. What I will tell you, though, is that there are some people with Lyme that do have broad immune suppression. And so if you happen, so one way to look at this is if you're the person with Lyme that generally does recovers from viruses like the flu and other things relatively easily, you probably are not somebody that has broad immune suppression, okay? But if you are the person with Lyme that every time you get a virus infection, it takes you forever to recover, or you get hit with the flu harder than everyone else, or you're the person with Lyme that picks up every virus infection that comes along, then you might have some immune suppression, which could make you at greater risk. The truth is, we don't know. No one's done the research on this, okay? But I want to just dispel the myth that everyone with Lyme has immune suppression that's going to make them at risk for coronavirus. That is not true. Most people with Lyme can tolerate flus and don't handle them any worse than anyone else does, for instance. Therefore, it's probably true that most people with Lyme do not have a type of immune suppression that's going to make it harder for them to deal with coronavirus. Having said that, as I just said, there are some people with Lyme that do have a hard time with viruses when they come along, that tend to get every virus or tend to have bad outcomes every time they get a virus. In those people, there may be some immune suppression that may make it harder for them to deal with coronavirus. Okay? All right. And then, Deborah, specifically to your point, the reason I was looking at that is, remember, just because you have a low CD57 does not mean all of your natural killers are low. It is just the CD57 type that is low. Okay? All right. Thanks for that question. And good luck to you. Hello, Jerry. Let's see. I know that so much about the coronavirus is unknown, but using the thinking that antimalarial drugs might hit this thing, is it possible that Cryptolepis might as well? So the answer is no. Just to be blunt, no. Okay. And so I can just tell you. So I run a supplement store, right? And suddenly Cryptolepis is flying off of my shelves, and I've been wondering, why is it selling like crazy all of a sudden? And I think what it is people are making an assumption that because it is an antimalarial and because chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, which are prescription antimalarials, work against coronavirus, therefore they think crypto should. Okay, but let me explain why I don't think it will, why it doesn't work, and why it is that Plaquenil, which is hydroxychloroquine, and chloroquine help in coronavirus. Okay, so both Plaquenil, which is hydroxychloroquine, and chloroquine are antimalarial drugs. Okay, they're quinine derivatives, basically. What they do is they bind zinc and they help carry it inside of cells. All right, so they are what are known as zinc ionophores. All right, they help get zinc to the inside of cells. All right, now, zinc inside of a cell that is infected with coronavirus, zinc is an effective agent that blocks the function of enzymes that help in replication of the coronavirus. In other words, if you have a lot of zinc that gets to the inside of cells infected with coronavirus, it has a hard time replicating, and therefore it can't survive. For the virus to spread, it needs to replicate. For the virus to infect us, it needs to replicate, okay? So the way that hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine work is by helping bind up zinc and getting it to the inside of the cells, so that in the cells then zinc can decrease viral replication by interfering with the enzyme that controls that, okay? Now, you cannot just take zinc at high levels and expect that it's going to get into your cells. All right. So, I've been asked, for instance, well, if I just take a lot of zinc, is that going to work as well? No, you need to get it in the cells. Okay. That's the key part of it. Okay. And what does that are zinc ionophores. All right. Now, there are studies that are telling us out of France, and there have been more recent ones coming out of China regarding these ionophores, hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine. And the first study that came out of France about a week, 10 days ago, that resulted in our president saying that this was the new wonder drug, basically showed that people that had been given, in a very small study, the people that had been given the hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine basically had a decreased viral shedding from their noses, okay, suggesting that it might work. That still doesn't mean decreased viral shedding does not mean it's actually going to help people feel better or get well more quickly. A more recent study that has not been published yet, but I have seen pre-publication versions of it out of China, I believe, is now showing that people get, by being on a hydroxychloroquine, will actually get to having lower temperatures more quickly than people that don't. And I believe the other outcome, there was another clinical outcome that they looked at that shows that people actually do get benefit, all right? I still think at this point, although I would recommend if somebody gets infected with coronavirus that they use a hydroxychloroquine, that they use a Plaquenil, I still think the jury is out as to whether we're going to see broad help from people being on it. But I think in this time when we don't have many other things to use, I do think it's a good idea, okay? And if I were to do it with somebody that had an infection, what I would do is the hydroxychloroquine, which is Plaquenil, and I would do it as a 200 milligram pill. There's different ways to use it. You can either use it as 200 milligrams 3 times a day, or you can use it as 400 milligrams twice a day on the first day, and then you decrease it down to 200 milligrams twice a day after that. I would use zinc with it, and I would probably use zinc sulfate at about 220 milligrams 1 time a day, so that you increase zinc intake with it too. The other thing that the French have shown in a very limited study is that combining that with Zithromax resulted in improvements for people. And we're not quite sure why that is. It may be that it's helping limit secondary bacterial infections, okay? All right, now, here's the other part. So remember I said the way that hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine work is that they're ionophores, all right? Cryptolepis is not an ionophore, all right? So I don't think it's going to work. But there's an interesting product that has some ionophore potential based on laboratory experiments, and that is a bioflavonoid called quercetin. Okay, quercetin. All right, now quercetin, because this has now become published, is a hot item, and it's hard to keep it in stock anymore. So if you go to my store, you're going to see I'm out of it probably until next week. But I'm starting to look at quercetin, and I'll be writing about it in my article when I update it tomorrow. Quercetin is interesting in 2 ways. Quercetin is an ionophore, so it can help get zinc inside the cells. There's also limited research from when the SARS epidemic happened a number of years ago. SARS was a coronavirus, that it decreased the infectivity, the ability of the virus to get inside of your cells, as long as on lab experiments, it showed decreased infectivity as long as those cells were coated in there was quercetin introduced to the cells before they got infected, okay? So it is possible that being on quercetin may help get more zinc inside your cells to decrease virus replication. It's also possible, based on Petri dish and lab experiments, that it will decrease the ability of those viruses to even infect the cells as long as you're on it ahead of time. Okay, you have to be on it ahead of time. There is some laboratory experiments that suggest quercetin may also be antiviral against it as well too. In other words, can kill it outright, okay? All right, so if you're looking for a way to do an ionophore to get zinc in, quercetin might be an option. I have no idea what the best dosing is on it, but when I'm using quercetin in my Lyme treatments to lower inflammation cytokines, the way that I'm using it is to have people take at least 500 milligrams 3 times a day, which is usually you're going to find quercetin as a 250 or a 300 milligram pill. Okay. All right. All right. One other word about, so quercetin is something, if you're wanting to if you want to take something that hasn't been proved to work in Lyme, hasn't been proved to work in coronavirus, but has the potential based on laboratory experiments to help, quercetin is something you might start taking before you get infected with coronavirus, because it would decrease the infectivity and would help bring zinc into your cells, so that if it is there, it decreases the virus replication as well too. Okay. One other thing about quercetin. People right now that are having bad outcomes from coronavirus are people that are developing severe acute respiratory distress syndrome, okay? And what is leading to that acute respiratory distress syndrome, research is starting to tell us, is that people get into what is known as a cytokine storm, all right? Now, one you guys that with Lyme are familiar with this idea of cytokines. The rest of the world is not, all right? One of the reasons people feel bad in Lyme is that their immune systems make too many cytokines. And there is a condition in Lyme, when you're treating Lyme, when you start killing a lot of Lyme, you can trigger a Herxheimer reaction. Well, that's a cytokine storm, okay? When you kill Lyme, sometimes you can trigger an excessive release of cytokines. And in an extreme, in coronavirus, that cytokine storm is resulting in lung damage and is actually killing people, okay? So one of the ways to potentially prevent getting into that situation is to block your cytokine production, all right? And guess what can do that? Quercetin, all right? So quercetin is an antioxidant that can lead to decreased cytokine production. Quercetin is a kinase inhibitor, blocks enzymes that lead to cytokine production. And quercetin also interferes with the functioning of a genetic molecule inside of cells that produce cytokines called NF-kappa B. So it has broad potential to decrease the type of cytokines that may lead to the lung damage, okay? So you'll see me write this in my article tomorrow, but one of the new recommendations for people that want to try something that has no scientific proof that it works in this illness, I need to be clear about that, but there is a potential it could help, is quercetin. And it could help in a number of ways. Number one, it could be a zinc ionophore, all right, to help get zinc in to block virus replication in your cells. Number two, it itself outright has the ability to block infectivity of the coronavirus. Number three, it could kill coronavirus potentially based on research on an earlier version of coronavirus called the SARS virus, okay? And then finally, number three, quercetin has the ability to limit these, block cytokine production. Therefore, it may block the cytokine storms that are currently getting people into trouble and damaging their lungs, resulting in them dying when they have coronavirus, okay? And my recommended dosing on it would be to take 250 to 300 milligram pill, at least 2 pills twice a day, preferably 2 pills 3 times a day, okay? Those are just some thoughts. Again, the research has not been done in this coronavirus, okay? But it is something I'm starting to look at and will be writing about in my article when I update it tomorrow. All right? All right. Thanks for that question, Jerry. Hello, Nicola. Let's see. Can severe itching that migrates around the body let's see. Can severe itching that migrates around the body be caused by Lyme bacteria or one of the other co-infections? So Nicola, so a few things. Number one, itching. One of the first things to do if you've got a lot of itching is make sure you don't have dry skin, okay? Dry skin is itchy skin, all right? So make sure you're moisturizing. I just say that outright, okay? That's one of the common primary care things to do. I'm a family doctor by training, and that's one of the first things you do when somebody's got a lot of itching, okay? But the other thing is itching can also be a sign of something called neurodermatitis, which means that you have nerve injury and it shows up as itching, all right? And could it migrate around? Yeah. I mean, one of the things you can have in Lyme infection, not Bartonella, but in Lyme infection, you can get what it was known as migrating neuropathy, where one day the nerves are irritated one place and the next day another place, all right? So if I were to think of something that might give migratory neuropathy giving itching, I would think of Lyme infection as being one of those things that can cause it. But again, I would caution you to make sure you don't have dry skin. Dry skin can give you a lot of itching as well too, okay? All right, thanks for the question. And good luck to you. Hello, Heather. Hi, Dr. Ross. I'm on 400 milligrams of doxycycline and 250 milligrams of Zithromax per day. Would it be harmful to take them all in one dose? I find it very difficult to space them out away from the minerals that I take. Thank you so much. So doxycycline works best with a peak dose, okay? So the way that doxycycline works is that a dose level that goes up does the best killing. And so if you dose it twice a day, 200 milligrams twice a day, it goes up, you get killing, and then it goes away, and then you dose again, it goes up, 200 milligrams, and it goes away, okay? But if you do a 400 milligram dose, you get a high peak, which means you get a whopping kill, and then it goes away, basically, all right? So there's two ways to use doxycycline, and if you can tolerate a one-time-a-day dose, you may get a better killing effect than if you do 200 milligrams twice a day, okay, just because of the high peak dose dynamics, all right? So yes, you could take doxycycline 400 milligrams one time a day if you can stomach it, because at that dose, you're going to tend to get a lot of nausea, okay? And it's okay to take it with your Zithromax at the same time. There's no harm in doing that, okay? All right. Thanks for the question, Heather. And good luck. Oh, let's see here. Hello, Michelle. Let me see if I can get your question posted here. There we go. Let's see. Sorry, a little long. Just need to give a little background. I'm currently on stealth bioburden protocol along with the atovaquone and azithromycin. A doctor that I have known for a long time recommended this to me because he said antibiotics will not eradicate the Lyme, and killing the stealth pathogens will help me not keep having relapses. Does this sound like it is something you think would work? I'm currently on a 14-day program, and on my second cycle of doing this. The first 4 days, I take artemisinin twice a day and Miraforte twice a day. Then the 5th through the 14th day, I take Veronone and echinacea. So, Michelle, I'm not familiar with that protocol, so I can't comment as to whether it works or not. What I can tell you is one of the reasons that people have difficulty getting rid of Lyme, and this is based on research. I would love to see the research supporting this, but I doubt if it's been done. I mean, I've looked at research. I don't see any research that would suggest that this is going to work. And from the world of research, what we're starting to know that the reason that people with Lyme may have a hard time recovering is that some of their spirochetes and some of their cysts turn into what are called persister forms or develop a persister state. All right, so let's talk about that for a minute. So Lyme lives in you in two major forms. One is a spirochete. You've seen pictures of that on the internet, okay? And the other form that it can live in you is what are known as microscopic cyst forms of the germ, all right? Now, after those germs have been exposed to antibiotics for a while, some of the spirochetes and some of the cysts will go into hibernation. They'll just slow their metabolism way down. And when they're hibernating, they basically ignore antibiotics. Those are called persisters, okay? Also, in a persister state, a lot more of the germ forms move into biofilms, okay? All right. So there's been a lot of research being done lately looking at what do you do about these persisters? And what we now know is things like disulfiram can treat persisters. Dapsone is something that can treat persisters. And those are based on human experience as well, too, okay? And then we have some laboratory experiments, petri dish experiments that are telling us that oregano oil might be able to help with persister forms, and something that you'd have to have compounded, a medication called methylene blue might help with persister forms, all right? So when I see stories of people not getting better, there's a few things I'm looking at. Number one, I want to know, did they have an adequate treatment of Lyme? Were they on something that would treat both spirochete and cyst Lyme, and something that would treat Lyme that gets inside of cells, okay? Number one. Number two, did they get treated for co-infections if they have them? And a lot of practitioners still to this day make a mistake of only relying on co-infection blood testing, all right? So if your Bartonella test is negative, even though you may have a lot of symptoms of Bartonella, they won't treat it. Or like a woman I saw today, it was clear to me she has Babesia because she's got drenching night sweats, severe migraines, panic attacks. Okay, those are all key symptoms of Babesia. Yet in the 8 years or so that she's been treated for her Lyme, no one addressed the Babesia. No one, because she was seeing a practitioner who only relied on testing. All right. Testing for Babesia is good for 2 strains, but you can have upwards of 15 to 20 strains. All right. Testing for Bartonella may be good for maybe 4 or 5 strains, maybe, but we estimate that there are 15 strains that infect humans. And so if your testing is negative, it doesn't exclude having those infections, okay? So when somebody's not getting better, I'm going to look and think, were they on an adequate treatment for their Lyme? Number 2, were their co-infections handled? All right. And I make that decision based on what the clinical symptoms tell me. All right. And then finally, these days, because we now know there's things called persisters, is if all those have been handled and they're still getting sick, then I'm going to start putting them on a regimen that involves a persister agent, which could be either disulfiram, dapsone, oregano oil, that is, or methylene blue. Those are all agents that can deal with persister Lyme. Okay. All right. Yeah. And so, but I don't know the specific regimen you were telling me about there. Thank you for that question. Hello, Lynn. Let's see. How do you strike a balance for COVID-19 and boosting immunity with supplements versus containing cytokine storm with anti-inflammatory supplements? Aren't the two fighting against each other? How do you know where the balance is to boost innate immunity while also containing cytokines or potential cytokine storm? What is balanced protocol of supplements to achieve this balance in the fight against COVID-19, mostly to avoid severe case with and without active tick-borne disease? Thank you. So again, turning on your innate immunity is unlikely to cause a cytokine storm. I just want to let you know that, okay? It in of itself is probably not going to do it. You'll probably have greater benefit by turning on your innate immunity to deal with the infection. While you're doing that, while you're using the supplements I recommended earlier, I'm not going to go through those again, I would do something also to control cytokines. And one of those ideas I talked to you about earlier is being on quercetin, because quercetin may also help treat the COVID-19 infection, kill it, and prevent its infectivity. But quercetin also, through various mechanisms, can keep cytokines from surging, okay? In addition, if you're concerned about blocking down cytokines, the other 2 things I would consider doing in addition to quercetin would be to be on curcumin, 500 milligrams 3 times a day, which also works through a variety of mechanisms to decrease cytokines. And the other thing is to be on a very strong antioxidant that can work to lower those, and that would be to be on glutathione. All right, and I will be updating my article to include those recommendations as well too. Steps to prevent cytokine storm would be to be on quercetin, and I would do it as 500, 600 milligrams 3 times a day, a curcumin, 500 milligrams 3 times a day, and liposomal glutathione. I like the Trifortify products for that, and I would do that as 5 milliliters 1 time a day. It is my opinion, as I have watched working with these herbs to boost the innate immune system, I do not see any triggering of cytokine storm from just being on these types of herbs, okay? They're basically getting your immune system ready, but I don't find them to be over revving up the immune system as well, all right? Okay, good luck to you, Lynn. That's a good question. Thank you. Hello, Kelly. Hi, Dr. Ross. I hope you're well and safe. I am. Thank you. I hope you are too. Let's see. What do you think of Coartem versus Malarone to treat Babesia? Do you prescribe Coartem? And if so, for what length of time? My second question is, how long should someone take azithromycin and Malarone together in the treatment of Lyme, Babesia, and Bartonella? Thank you so much for your time and help. All right. So, Kelly, you're welcome, first of all. So when we treat for Babesia, which is why we would prescribe a Coartem or we would prescribe a Malarone, is we want to treat for about 4 to 5 months. And I usually will treat for 5 months. The idea is the reason we do that is based on the idea that Babesia infects your red blood cells, all right? And a red blood cell, when it is made by our bone marrow, will live in us for around 3 months, sometimes a little bit more. We find the best treatments work if we treat well beyond at least 1 life cycle of red blood cells. And the idea is to try to kill them so they will not reinfect the new babies as they're popping up, basically. Okay. So I usually try to treat for at least 4 to 5 months to do that. I find those would give me the best chance of not getting into Babesia relapses. All right. Secondly, when you're treating for Babesia, if you are on a regimen that's working, by 1 to 2 months into that regimen, you should start seeing improvements of the symptoms that suggest Babesia. All right. And those symptoms can be drenching night sweats, air hunger, which is a feeling you can't get enough air while you're even at rest. Okay. You should see decreasing panic attacks. Another symptom you might see is decreasing frontal headaches or decreasing migraines. The other thing you would want to see if you happen to have this is an interesting Babesia symptom, but some people with Babesia get very frequent deja vu. And I find that people that do have that frequent deja vu symptom, that is one of the first things that often starts improving when we get them on an effective regimen. Okay. Now, what's better, I find in general that Malarone is going to be a better agent than Coartem for Babesia. That's been my experience. I do reserve Coartem if I've tried a Malarone or I've tried an atovaquone-based regimen and it's not working, then that's usually when I'll try Coartem. But it's more if the other regular stuff is not working, okay? But I think you have a better chance with the Malarone. That's been what my experience has been, okay? All right. Thanks for the question. All right. So everyone, if you're wondering what regimens treat Babesia, actually, let me go back here. Hold on here a minute. I'm going to do a screen share. If you're wondering which treatments work best for Babesia, I'm going to show you an article that I've written that you can look at later. All right. And also, if you're looking at what Babesia symptoms are, I'm going to show you the article to look at that. So in terms of how to treat Babesia, take a look at my online Lyme guide, look under my infection treatment plan section, and then take a look at my article called Kills Babesia, A Brief Guide. And in here, I outline a number of ways to treat Babesia, okay? If you're also looking for how do you diagnose Babesia, what are the symptoms you would follow, take a look at my section here called How to Diagnose, and take a look at this article called How to Diagnose Babesia. In here, I describe the various symptoms that I would use to diagnose Babesia in somebody, okay? All right, thanks for the question. All right, here we go. Let's see who's next here. Like Sherry's got a question here. Hi, Sherry. Let's see. Dear Dr. Ross, what do you think of the following 2 detox options? Take a Sumi charcoal, add detox 2. What dose do you recommend? What do you think of astragalus and phosphatidylserine as supports with an antibiotic regimen? What dose would you recommend? Thank you for all you do for Lyme sufferers, and gratitude, Sherry. Thank you, Sherry. So first of all, I'm not familiar with the Detox 2 by Byron White. In general, I am not that enamored with any Byron Whites because I've used them before. I just don't find benefit. I know a number of my colleagues use this stuff, but I think there's better ways at going in infection, and I think there's better ways at detoxing, okay? All right. In terms of detoxing, what I like to do is to support the liver, which is your master detox organ in terms of Lyme toxins and any kind of fat-based toxins. And I like to support that detox by giving the liver what it needs to detox, and that is glutathione. So my number one tool when I'm working with somebody to detox is beyond liposomal glutathione. And I like the Research Nutritionals product that has been shown in studies to actually result in increased glutathione in the body. And that would be to do a Trifortify watermelon or a Trifortify orange. I like using 1 teaspoon 1 time a day, okay? The other key part of detox is do not put toxins in, all right? So eat organic if you can. Even if it's more expensive, eat organic, all right? Avoid chemicals that have strong odors and because those are toxins, okay? All right. Then if I've got somebody that is has been exposed to mold toxins, those are situations where I would go to mold binders. and what are toxin binders. And you could use either an activated charcoal, and I like using a product by Integrative Therapeutics called activated charcoal, and I like using a 550 milligram pill, and I start at 1 pill 1 time a day, and I try to gradually work up to 2 pills twice a day. All right. So my detox regimen would be: don't put toxins in, eat organic foods. Number 2, support liver detox with glutathione. Try 4 to 5 products, 1 teaspoon 1 time a day. And number 3, if everything is overwhelmed, then add activated charcoal. And I would do that as working up to 2 pills twice a day. Okay. Those are my thoughts. All right. Good luck to you, Sherry. Hello, Sung-Shin. Let's see. Hi, I have a few questions. I've been on antibiotics for 2 years for Lyme and Babesia. All Lyme bands are negative, but the GMA is 80 positive. My doctor doesn't seem to know if Lyme is cured or not. Babesia decani, IgM is negative, but the IFA IgG is 320. This number has not changed. Can you explain these results? I recently started taking disulfiram, 125 milligrams. Do I need to increase the dosage? Can I still eat cheese and yogurt? All right. A lot of questions, but let me see what we can do here. Okay, so first of all, about your Babesia. Actually, about antibody measurements. All right, so when we're when you're looking, what your doctor is doing is they're testing antibody levels to see if you're done being treated. And I think it's the worst idea in the world. So I'm just going to say, I don't believe in doing it. All right, let me explain why. All right. So when we get sick with an infection, we develop 2 families of antibodies. The first family we developed are IgMs, and then they're supposed to get replaced by IgGs by around 6 weeks to 3 months. Once we develop IgG antibodies, they are the memory of the immune system. They will stay positive. Okay. And once they're positive, it just means you had the infection. Some of my colleagues are now making a mistake of trying to measure the amount of antibody levels to see if a germ is still in you. And all that those antibody levels tell you is that the immune system is working well. If you have high antibody levels, it means the immune system is working really well. It doesn't mean because the immune system is making a lot of antibodies that you still necessarily have the germ in you. There's no proof behind that theory, okay? Likewise, when you have Lyme and you have, especially with Lyme, we know from studies that Lyme can get very active at times and it can suppress the immune system. So if you're measuring your Western blot to see if you're still making antibodies, or you're measuring your GMA and you're still trying to see if you're making antibodies and they come back negative, well, guess what? That doesn't prove the germ is gone. It may just be that your germ has gotten really active and is doing a great job suppressing the immune system. So we give people a false hope when we say, well, your antibodies are negative, your bands are negative. That doesn't prove the germ is gone. It may just mean that the antibodies aren't being made because the germ is active, suppressing your immune system. All right. Likewise, just because the Western blot gets more reactive or your GMA gets more reactive does not indicate that the germ is more reactive. It just means maybe your immune system is doing better. All right. Now that GMA that you have is an indirect measurement or is a way of measuring, do you have antibodies in you that could be made against Lyme? If it is your IgG that is still remaining positive, well, guess what? You had Lyme in you. IgGs are the memory of the immune system. I would expect you should be still making the IgGs, okay? So getting that back positive doesn't prove the germ is active. In fact, we do not have a where are you in your Lyme test or your Lyme journey test. There isn't such a thing. And doctors are trying to use the ELISpot test to show that. They're trying to use the antibody test to show that. But the truth is, the only way of knowing if the germ is out of you would be if we had a decent test that actually measures the germ, okay? And the trouble is, we don't have a decent test that measures the germ. The only test that we have for Lyme, and most of the testing we have for Babesia, is measuring your immune reaction, which has nothing to do at times with how active the germ is in you or even out of you. So I strongly disagree with my colleagues that are starting to resort to testing instead of doing good clinical medicine. good clinical medicine says, evaluate the patient based on their symptoms, and based on their symptoms, if it looked like Lyme is still there, treat for it. Okay, that's what good clinical medicine tells us to do. Okay, all right. So anyhow, don't mean to get up on my soapbox, but this is one of the things I'm just starting to see a lot of practitioners doing, and it's garbage. There is no science behind the idea that says what's going on with your antibodies determines whether the germ is or is not active in you. It's just garbage. It's garbage that they're doing it, actually. All right? All right. Thanks for the question. Good luck to you. Hello, Sam. Let's see. Hello, Dr. Ross. Please could you give me your thoughts on my current treatment, as I feel like I'm just making no progress at the moment. I've been taking rifampicin, doxycycline, cefuroxime, and artesunate for Lyme, Bartonella, and possible Babesia for 3 months now. I also tested highly positive for mold toxins through real-time labs, and I've been taking cholestyramine and liposomal glutathione. I have constant anxiety, panic attacks, constant calf muscle twitching, dizziness, and eye floaters. Would you even class eye floaters as a symptom? As I've been told, everyone gets them. The only thing I feel has helped with my symptoms is B12 injections. What are your thoughts, and could you suggest anything else that might help? Thanks, and hope you're having a great day. Okay, so I'm going to try to answer this, but just bear with me, okay? All right, so to understand what's happening with your symptoms and whether treatment is not working, we got to talk about how quickly things will get better, all right? For the Lyme germ, how quickly you get better from Lyme symptoms is a lot slower than how quickly you can get better from Babesia or Bartonella symptoms when you're on an agent that is working, all right? Let's look at Bartonella first. Bartonella replicates every 24 hours, which means it's a faster growing germ. That compares to Lyme that replicates maybe upwards of every 4 weeks. It's a slow growing germ, all right? Bartonella, if you are on a regimen that is working, you should start seeing improvement in the Bartonella symptoms within 1 to 2 months, okay? Babesia is in a similar situation. Usually, if Babesia treatment is working, you will start to see improvement in those Babesia specific symptoms by 1 to 2 months. For Lyme, Lyme's a different animal. The Lyme germ and the symptoms it produces can take longer. And there was a study that was done that was presented at one of the national Lyme meetings, the ILADS meeting, probably about 8-10 years ago, that showed that when people were put, for just the Lyme germ, if they were put on Biaxin, which is clarithromycin, and Flagyl, if they were put on those two antibiotics and they were watched, what we found is that by 3 months, only 30% of people were experiencing any kind of improvement, okay? By 6 months, by 6 months, 60% of people were showing some degree of improvement. And by 9 months, 90% of people were showing some degree of improvement, okay? So your Lyme symptoms may take longer to show improvement, okay? Now, when I see your symptoms of constant anxiety and panic attacks and muscle twitching, panic attacks is something that is seen in Babesia. Muscle twitching and constant anxiety is something that is seen often in Bartonella. By looking at that, that would suggest to me that your current regimen is not working. And I will tell you, artesunate for Babesia is kind of a weaker way of treating it. If I were to make one addition to your treatment, I probably would take the artesunate out, and I probably would go with Malarone, and I would do 1 pill 1 time a day, right, to bolster that. For your Bartonella, you're using rifampicin and doxycycline. Those are your Bartonella agents here. I might consider, given that this is not working, I might try to get rid of the doxycycline and instead replace it with either azithromycin or clarithromycin to see if you can get a better treatment of your Bartonella as well too, okay? Those would be my thoughts. I don't think your Bartonella treatment's working from what you've told me here, okay? Now, I'm just saying, based on what you've told me here, I don't get to ask you 1,000 questions to find out for sure. And based on what you've told me here, it doesn't look like your Babesia treatment is working. And they should be by now. If you've been doing this for at least 3 months, you should be seeing improvements, and those parts of your treatment, I think, need to be changed. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Sam. Hello, I think Lewis, if I'm right. Hold on here just a minute. Let's see. Hello, Dr. Ross. It's my first Q&A with you. Well, welcome here. I'm glad to see that you're here. Thank you very much to host this. You're welcome. Let's see. I hope you can point me in the right direction. I don't know what to do. I live in Canada, and getting help from chronic Lyme is impossible. 10 years ago, after 4 years of being sick, I saw an MD in USA and got a clinical diagnosis for Lyme and positive lab result for Bartonella. I was on various meds for 1 year, and I was feeling good. For the next 10 years, I was living with mild muscular pain, but it was okay. 3 months ago, I saw an MD for bladder pain and pain when peeing. I took Cipro 10 days, nothing. Clavulin 10 days, nothing. Fluconazole 14 days with Levaquin 30 days for maybe a yeast processitis, nothing. It didn't solve my urinary problem, and now all my symptoms from 2009 are coming back. Is it possible I woke sleeping Lyme form? I won't be able to get help in Canada. Is there anything I can do? Is herbal treatment my only option? I don't want to go back to the way I was in 2009. Okay, so let me give you a couple ideas here, okay? So this gets complicated, all right? I'll just say that to begin with. So when I hear a story of somebody going on antibiotics and then suddenly everything that looked like their Lyme has come back, one of the things I start wondering is, did those antibiotics you go on lead to too many yeast starting to grow in your intestines, all right? Now, that may sound far-fetched, but just bear with me. Let me explain why. All right. When you have Lyme disease symptoms, the reason you get Lyme disease symptoms is the immune system overreaction to the germ. All right. Specifically, when your white blood cells see that you have Lyme in you, they create a bunch of chemicals called cytokines. And cytokines are good and bad. All right. On the good side, cytokines cause more white blood cells to be made. They help draw those white blood cells to where the infection is, and they help those white blood cells work better. That's all good. All right. But in certain situations, like in Lyme, sometimes the immune system doesn't do a good job, and it keeps trying harder and harder. And eventually it overproduces cytokines. Too many cytokines, the symptoms of too many cytokines are brain fog, sleep disturbances, bad fatigue, muscle achiness, sometimes irritation of the lining of your bladder. All right. So it could be, so those are symptoms of excess cytokines. Okay. Now, when you're on antibiotics for anything, that sometimes can lead to too many yeast growing in your intestines. And when you get too many yeast in your intestines, the immune system sees those yeast and reacts by making cytokines. Okay, so a sign of having too many yeast in your intestines can be a marked decline in what you thought were your Lyme symptoms, which are really excess cytokine symptoms. All right. So in my practice, what I have seen when I get somebody well or in a better place with Lyme, and say a year, 2 years, 3 years later, they come in and they think they're having a decline or that their Lyme is returned, about 80 to 90% of the time, I find that is due to too many yeast living in the intestines, all right? Some clues that it could be too many yeast living in the intestines are recent antibiotics like you just had, okay? Because recent antibiotics are a setup to get too many yeast. Also, having increased sugar cravings, having increased intestinal gasiness or bloating, feeling a lot worse with your symptoms when you feed your yeast with sugar. Okay, that sometimes will do it. And then kind of a peculiar symptom is when you have too many yeast in the intestines, sometimes it can result in developing a lot of pimples and acne. All right, now here's why. So when you have too many yeast in your intestines, they produce toxins that get absorbed into your bloodstream. And if you have a genetic predisposition, it is possible you can get pimples and acne. So sometimes when I'm starting to look at somebody, I see they come in my office and they're full of pimples and acne and they're not doing well. The first thing I'm going to ask is, I'm just going to start thinking of, could it be yeast? All right. So consider if it could be yeast. Okay. if you have a number of those symptoms that I was just talking about, then you ought to get your yeast treated, okay? Now, if it's not so clear, then the other thing you might want to do is consider a consult with me. Sometimes it's really complicated to figure out what's going on, because the other thing, like Levaquin, can leave you with permanent symptoms from injury from being on it. So some of this might be that you were quote unquote floxed. Look that one up, and that might scare you, but you can sometimes get into permanent injury from being on a Cipro or a Levaquin that are in the same family. Okay, you can. All right, they can sometimes lead to ongoing symptoms as well too. So if you want help sorting this out, I'd be glad to work with you to do that. And one of the ways you can do that is to become one of my patients through a consult service that I have. So let me show you where you would find out information about that. So it's something we can consult using telemedicine online. Okay, let me do a quick screen share on that. All right, so let me pull up my practice website. I'll just go here. All right, so this is my practice website. My practice is called Marty Ross MD Healing Arts. All right, take a look at my appointments page and read about the two ways you can visit with me online. You can either do my limited consult service, or you can do a full medical service. Now, my full medical service is where I can prescribe for you and order tests. And it used to be that I would require that you had to see me at least one time in office before I would prescribe. During the coronavirus, I am waiving that requirement. But I am requiring you to sign a form that you agree that as soon as coronavirus decreases and it's safe to travel again, that you will make a follow-up visit in my office so I can examine you. Okay? All right. But so take a look at both of these options for ways that I can visit with you. And if it looks like something you might want to do, then what you do is you click on my Book Now Here button and you can set up the appointment, okay? The reason I'm showing you this as an option is unless it is very clear, if all those symptoms that I said about yeast, if they are you, treat your yeast, okay? But if they are not you, then I need to kind of help you go through this with more detail, ask you a bunch of questions to help figure out what is really going on, okay? All right, I'm going to do one more screen share to show you some resources you can look at regarding helping figure out if it's yeast, and also how to treat yeast. So go back to, this is my Lyme disease information site. Take a look at my chapter on yeast. And here's an article I've written about how do you diagnose too many yeast. And then here's an article I've written about how do you treat too many yeast. Okay. All right. Louis, good luck to you. Thank you for that question. Hello, Joyce. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. What are your beliefs on the combo IVs versus supplements? I had blood work which showed I am not absorbing glutathione and vitamin C no matter how many supplements I take in a day. My hesitation is twofold. Are IVs safe and cost? I'm not sure the benefit will match the cost. The reasoning is that my gut issues are preventing absorption of nutrients. I'm currently taking digestive enzymes with meals, as well as 150 billion CFUs probiotics divided throughout the day. I have both Lyme and Bartonella diagnosis, currently up to 14 drops each cytokine. All right, so if you have gut dysfunction, sometimes doing IV nutritional supplements can be helpful, okay? Because it gets around the issues of gut absorption. One of the reasons you may be having poor gut absorption is that your cells that line the gut may be nutrient starved and they can't work well enough, okay? So that if you were to go through a series of Myers cocktails or IV glutathione, you might be able to get those cells to start functioning to absorb things again, all right? So it's possible it could help you. Now, I would need to know a lot more about you by asking questions, but just on the surface, it is something that might be beneficial, okay? And it doesn't mean it has to be long-term. It could be just long enough. You do a month or two of these infusions, your cells start working correctly in your intestines again because they've got the right nutrients, and then suddenly you're absorbing everything, all right? So it's possible that that could help you, all right? Good luck to you, Joyce. Hello, Lindsay. I'm curious about the cytokine response in Lyme and babesiosis and how that is related to what they are describing as happened to people's lungs who are infected with coronavirus. All right. So, Lindsay, I answered that earlier, but basically, just real quickly again. So, in Lyme disease and in virus infections, the immune system gets triggered to make cytokines. At correct levels, cytokines are good. They turn white blood cells on to fight infections, and they help draw those white blood cells to where the infection is, and they help them work better. Okay. But in Lyme, you can have cytokine excess. And a case of severe cytokine excess would be something called a Herxheimer reaction, which is a cytokine storm. Your immune system sees dead bug parts and releases way too many cytokines that can injure you. Okay. In coronavirus, what we're seeing is that there's a subset of people that get into respiratory failure, acute respiratory distress syndrome, and that appears to be related to excess cytokines, specifically something called interleukin 6. There may be other ones as well too, okay? And so that's an extreme cytokine storm that is interfering with how the lungs function and actually damaging the lungs, all right? And so it is possible, the studies haven't been done, that the steps we take as part of Lyme treatment, that I take as part of my Lyme treatments to block cytokines, may be beneficial to somebody if they get the coronavirus, if they're already doing things to block cytokine production. It may limit the severity of their respiratory syndrome. It may, okay? We don't have studies to know that, okay? So the things I recommend for my Lyme patients to lower cytokines, again, may lower cytokines and prevent some of these storm situations in COVID-19 and coronavirus. So at a minimum, I would do, again, quercetin, because it also may have antiviral properties. It may help get zinc inside of your cells to limit virus replication, and quercetin lowers cytokines, all right? And that would be 250 to 300 milligram pill, 2 pills, 3 times a day. I would do curcumin, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And I would also be on glutathione, which through various mechanisms also can lower cytokines. And I would do a Trifortify orange or a Trifortify watermelon by research nutritionalists, because they have science that proves it actually is absorbed well. And I would do 1 teaspoonful of that 1 time a day. That would be my anti-cytokine formula that I use as part of my Lyme treatments. And I suspect it would be helpful if you happen to get COVID-19, but I have to give a big disclaimer here. Who knows? The research hasn't been done. Okay. All right. Thank you for that question, Lindsay. Hello, Deborah. Let's see. Dr. Ross, what do you think of the Andy Cutler protocol for mercury and leg toxicity? It makes the most sense to me, as I became very ill after IV product test with DMPS EDTA that showed very high mercury and lead. Thank you. So I haven't seen the specific parts of the protocol. I am aware he has a protocol. Beyond that, I can't comment about whether I think it's a good one or not, because I'm not sure, because I haven't read the whole protocol. All right. All right. Thanks for that question, Deborah. Hello, Elise. Let's see. I had a resolving set of Lyme labs, this on Western blot a year ago, and latest test shows multiple positive bands, some IgG, but described as abnormal present, and a couple IgMs. One doctor says Lyme came roaring back. The other said false positive, driven by Bartonella. I'm not sure what to make of divergent options. I do have Bartonella still. So at least, as I was saying earlier, there is not a way of measuring whether Lyme is active in you or not by testing. And the doctors that are trying to do this, I think, are just, I think they're selling you false hope by doing those type of tests. Please, if you did not hear earlier in the webinar tonight, go back and look early in the webinar where I gave a detailed description of why I don't think doing testing is the way to go in terms of seeing if your Lyme is active or is not active. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question. Hello, Phil. Let's see. I have many of the same 2014 Lyme symptoms. 1, chronic fatigue. energy levels low every day. 2, frequent muscle aches, occasional random short pains, no swelling. 3, itching, chest, arms, and legs. 4, no fever but frequent chills. 5, lack of concentration, mentally not alert, and clear thinking. I have recently tested positive and had antibiotic treatment for SIBO. I reviewed your Lyme relapse web pages and plan to restart your Lyme treatment protocol. Do you have any advice in addition to your comprehensive treatment protocol? So Phil, one thing, the only piece of advice I would have is, yeah, it could be that Lyme is back, but think of other things that trigger cytokines. Okay, so first of all, SIBO, small intestine bacteria overgrowth, bacteria living in your intestines where it's not supposed to be, can trigger cytokines, all right? So if you treat SIBO, it may be that all of these symptoms you have, which are actually excess cytokine symptoms, will get better, okay? Remember earlier tonight I talked about cytokines, so I'm not jumping in to re-explain it again, okay? But these symptoms you're having are excess cytokine symptoms, and it could be SIBO triggering excess cytokines, all right? All right, if clearing SIBO doesn't work, the next thing I would consider is, do you have too many yeast? As I explained earlier tonight, too many yeast trigger cytokines and can be a syndrome that looks just like Lyme got active, all right? Treat for yeast if it's there, and then see where things are. And if you don't have too many yeast, or you did treat too many yeast and you're still having problems, then it's time to resume a Lyme treatment. Following the Ross Lyme support protocol is one way to do that, okay? All right, good luck to you. Hello, Lisa. Hi, I've been in remission for a short while from Lyme and co-infections, but I'm treating for mold toxins with cholestyramine. Do you herx randomly with this med? Hi, Lisa. So everyone with mold toxicity illness, let me just do a brief description of it so we can talk about cholestyramine. So mold toxin illness is something that happens in about 25% of Americans, or 25% of people are predisposed genetically to having mold toxin illness. And specifically, based on the work of Dr. Richie Shoemaker, who is the one that kind of was the founder of this whole area of medicine, his work shows that 25% of people have a genetic predisposition where when they breathe in, eat in, drink in mold toxins that get into their bloodstream, that they're not able to remove them. And what happens specifically is, if you have, what happens in 75% of us when our immune system is working well, it sees these mold toxins in our bloodstream, tags them, other parts of the immune system come in and break them down. They don't bother us anymore, okay? But if you're one of the 25% that has a genetic programming that is incorrect, you will not tag these mold toxins when they get in you. And because they're not tagged, other parts of the immune system won't break them down. Those mold toxins then go to the liver. The liver is charged with trying to transform them into water-based toxins, where if they were able to be changed into water-based toxins, they go out, mix in your poop, and you poop them out. But the liver is not able to do that. They come out of the liver still fat-based. They get moved out into your intestines because they are fat-based toxins. They get reabsorbed back into your bloodstream. So you get this endless loop of toxins in your blood, go to the liver, out into the intestines, get absorbed again. You just keep looping around, all right? Now, what those toxins do is just like what Lyme does and just what yeast does. They trigger too many cytokines to be made, okay? And as I described earlier tonight, Lyme symptoms are too many cytokine symptoms. Well, mold toxicity symptoms are too many cytokine symptoms, all right? Now, one of the things that happens when you kill Lyme, you can get, your immune system will see all those dead bug parts and make too many cytokines. We call that a Herxheimer reaction, and you feel bad for that, okay? By comparison, when you use cholestyramine, which is a toxin binder, and you start binding up these toxins in the intestines, as you start moving toxins in the body, that also can trigger a cytokine surge. Now, we wouldn't call that a Herxheimer reaction because Herxheimer is really just the cytokine surge you get from killing germs, but it looks a lot like a Herxheimer because it is a cytokine surge, okay? So yes, while you're using binders, as you're binding up your toxins, that may periodically cause an excess surge in cytokines that will make you feel worse, okay? So it's not that you're really herxing, because a herx is reserved for a cytokine surge you get from killing germs. We don't call cytokine surges in other situations a herx, okay? So it's not technically a herx, but it is a cytokine surge, just like you would get in a herx reaction, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Lisa. Hello, Marie E. Marie E. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. What do you think of MMS to treat Lyme and co-infections or to treat anything else, including coronavirus? Is it true it's like drinking chlorine? Wonder if it's dangerous to try it. Thank you. You know, I know the MMS, I think it's called Miracle Mineral Supplement. I believe that's what the MMS stands for. I have never seen people have good benefit long term from being on it. That's just my experience. I don't think it's useful, actually. All right. Thanks for that question, Maria. Hello, Michelle. Let's see. With allergies starting, I've had such bad back drip and nausea, and it's so hard sometimes to differentiate what symptoms are from what. Anything you would recommend during this pollen season? Yeah, you can use things that stabilize what are called mast cells. Mast cells are the type of cells in the body that make histamines. So if a pollen lands on a mast cell, it releases histamines, gives you all that runny nose and the back drip, okay? So one of the, what is useful to stabilize mast cells is quercetin. I mean, tonight may be my quercetin night. The trouble is I'm recommending quercetin across the board, and yet the stuff is in short supply right now, okay? But again, if you're looking for quercetin, I think by middle of next week, I should have it back in my store. Probably will first have an allergy research product, and I hope within the next week and a half to have a thorn product as well too. But quercetin, which lowers cytokines, which may help treat virus infections from COVID-19, also is a great mast cell stabilizer, okay? If you're using it as a mast cell stabilizer, I usually dose it as a 250 to 300 milligram pill, 2 pills twice a day, versus if I'm using it more for its antivirus properties and for its anti-cytokine properties, I would dose it 3 times a day at those doses, at those number of pills, okay? All right. And you need to give it about a week or 2 to see if it's going to help stabilize your allergies, okay? The other thing that can be a good mast cell stabilizer is a chemical called luteolin that is found in a product called Neuroprotect. And if you were to do that for mast cell stabilization, I would do 1 pill 3 times a day of Neuroprotect. And that product I'm not out of right now. You can find it at my supplement store. In fact, let me just show it to you real quick so you know what you're looking for. All right, so this is my supplement source, Marty Ross MD supplements. This is what I use for my patients. What I have tried to put on my supplement store are products that have a proven track record of working, but also products that have a proven track record of putting in, brands that have a proven track record of putting in what they say is in their supplements, all right? You have to be careful. There's a lot of garbage out there. There have been a lot of studies that show that what a lot of these companies say is in their product is not in their product, okay? Good studies that show that. So if you're going to use supplements, you can get cheap stuff at Costco. You can get cheap stuff everywhere. But if you really want to have a good chance that your supplements are going to work, use good brands, all right? And I've tried to put these here. And anyone can buy from me, although, again, this is the site that I use with my patients as well, too, okay? So in terms of the luteolin, product that I have, again, is called Neuroprotect. Oh, actually, you could use, there's 2 products you could use. You could use this Neuroprotect, and that would be 1 pill 3 times a day. You also, I had forgotten about this product. This is a product called Histoquel by Research Nutritionals, and in it is quercetin. It's also got luteolin in it as well, too. And if you were to do this, I would do 2 capsules twice a day on this one, okay? All right. All right. Good luck to you, Michelle. Thank you for the question. Hello, Leanne. Let's see. Hold on here a minute. Let's see. I've been treating Babesia decani with Malarone and had some great progress in the first few months. But now I have severe body aches and fatigue and just don't seem to be getting better. Can Mycoplasma chlamydia pneumonia cause body aches and fatigue and feel like you are relapsing? What would you suggest I take for this? So what I would look at, if you're treating and you got worse while you're on antimicrobials, think yeast, think yeast, think yeast, and then again, think yeast, okay? And the reason I'm trying to be so emphatic about that is being on antimicrobials knock down good bacteria in your intestines that lead yeast to get active, okay? So the most common thing that this would be is that you've got yeast activity in your intestines. Symptoms that could suggest that, again, would be increased sugar cravings, gassiness and bloating, vaginal itching, vaginal discharge, worsened pimples and acne, sometimes having a problem feeling like you're having difficulty swallowing because sometimes yeast will get up here and it makes things feel like they're getting captured, okay? It is not my experience that Mycoplasma chlamydia would give these kind of symptoms. Anyhow, so those are my thoughts on that, okay? All right. Thanks for your question, Leah. Hello, Cindy. Let's see. In the past, I have had Lyme, Babesia, Bartonella, Ehrlichia, Mycoplasma pneumoniae, and HHV6 to give you a sense of my background. Right now, I am fighting particularly with Mycoplasma pneumoniae. Chest X-ray showed left segmental atelectasis, which is challenged to get care for in the midst of COVID-19, especially given that it wouldn't be this bad if my immune system wasn't level to begin with. We have been through Zithromax, rifampin, and Doxy without any of these making tremendous progress. We are finally seeing progress with Levaquin, but it is still dragging enough that I think a second antibiotic might be necessary. Any suggestions on how to complement the Levaquin? Also, I have an extensive problem with Schomburg disease on my lower legs and feet, inflammation of capillaries causing leakage of red blood cells into the skin, causing discoloration. Are there any of the previously mentioned diseases that might be the likely culprit? So to answer your last question, I'm not aware that they would, okay? If you're looking for an antibiotic that you can use to take along with your Levaquin, that is an intracellular antibiotic that might treat chlamydia pneumoniae or Mycoplasma pneumoniae, I would think of a tetracycline, and I would look at probably doxycycline or minocycline. Other antibiotics that might work, but you do not want to take with Levaquin would be clarithromycin and azithromycin. The reason you don't want to take those with your Levaquin is both Levaquin and those two antibiotics can lead to heart arrhythmia problems, all right? So you don't want to take those together, all right? But minocycline or doxycycline taken with Levaquin would be safe to do, all right? Okay. Good luck to you, Cindy, and thank you for that question. Hello, Joanne. Let's see. Hello, Dr. Ross. Is there specific supplements to take for diagnosis of Bart Babesia? So any of the Bartonella antimicrobial, so the antimicrobials that will kill Bartonella, the family Bartonella, whether it is Bartonella elizabethii, Bartonella vinsoni, Bartonella henselae, Bartonella quintana, any of the Bartonella strains, I would use Sida acuta along with Houtennia, those two, okay? And I would start each at 5 drops of each twice a day, and I would work up by increasing 1 drop per dose every day until you reach 30 drops twice a day. Those are the germ killers that I find effective against Bartonella, regardless of what the species is. Those two herbal antibiotics work about 70 to 75% of the time based on my clinical experience to take care of that infection. In terms of what else you can use, you could look at prescriptions, but your question wasn't about that. But if you were to use prescription antibiotics for Bartonella, any combination of 2 antibiotics that I recommend for Bartonella treatment will work about 80 to 85% of the time. All right. So time is a little bit short here, but I just want to let you know, you can look at my Bartonella, how to get rid of Bartonella article at treatlyme.net. And the article is called Kills Bartonella. You can find it in the online guide under infection treatment plans, or in the search bar, just Google Bartonella. You'll find the article where I give you various combinations of antibiotics you can use, prescription antibiotics you can use to treat the Bartonella too. Okay? All right. Thanks for that question, Joanne. Good luck to you. Hello, Lindsay. If someone has ongoing breathing-related issues due to Babesia, are you at a greater risk for complications related to COVID-19? Lindsay, I honestly don't know. When we think of people that really are going to be at risk, are going to be people that have underlying lung injury, tissue injury, like in COPD or chronic bronchitis or an emphysema or possibly an asthma. People with Babesia do have a sense of having air hunger, but I have never seen any data that shows that the lung tissue itself is injured. And so I am doubtful that people with Babesia are going to be at any greater risk for complications if they get COVID-19. But to be honest with you, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question and good luck to you. All right, everyone. That's it. It's been good being with you here tonight. Next week, we have another webinar scheduled, and I have one for the week after that as well, too. Tomorrow morning, somewhere around, I would say 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning, you should get an email from me with a synopsis of what we talked about in the webinar, as well as links to the recording for that webinar as well, too. Also within that email will be a sign-up link so you can sign up for the next set of webinars, too. All right. For those of you that are still with me, thank you for staying this long. For those of you that keep getting benefit out of this, I hope you'll share what we're doing here so that more people will attend and we can help more people. All right. I'm trying to help as many people as I can. So if you know people that might benefit from showing up at the webinars, please share the information. Please let them know about how to sign up for this. Okay. I'd appreciate that. And good luck to everyone. We'll see you next week. Good night.